Hello, everyone, and welcome to Colorful Pixels, the show where I talk with the people behind the pixels. I'm your host, Carmen Askerneese, and today I'm joined by Agnesa Belegu. Hello, Agnesa.
Hello.
Thank you so much for
Hi,
being on
Carmen.
the show.
Thank you for the invite. Um, Thanks for, I guess, turning the camera on the other side of the pixels on a screen. That's really cool.
Of course. Well, one thing I wanted to ask you as we kind of start off this conversation in a lot of episodes, do you have a memory or your earliest memory of playing games and what that was like?
Yeah, actually, I do. I'm very connected to this memory because I honestly don't know if there was anything earlier than that at this point. Like, I think now I've pinned it as my first memory. If there was something before, well, I guess it's not as important as this, but I remember very vividly, like back in the day, and where I'm from in Kosovo, like girls weren't necessarily like seen as people who should be playing games and should be like playing video games. Our time was better spent being productive elsewhere. Let's put it like a little bit mildly. And so typically, like, you would have the brothers and the cousins and like the boys, right, of the families that would be getting all these consoles and things, and girls were mildly more like detached from that experience. But me, I just really wanted to know what was behind the computer screen that my brother was hiding in his room. Like, I really just had this unrelenting curiosity of exploring it. And so one time, like one day, I remember that I made it into his room. Like, I found his key, like he had hid it, and all these things, like the trouble that brothers go through to hide things from their little sisters. And then I made it into his room, and I turned on the computer, and I didn't necessarily know how to use it, but I just started clicking around, and one of the icons opened up the screen, and it said, well, now looking back, at the time I didn't know how to read English, and I barely could read, really. And it said Hitman, codename 47. And I was like, whoa, what's that? And obviously I had no idea that's not something that is encouraged to be played by people under 18, but it was what it was. And I started the game, like, I started a fresh save. I think I might have even overwritten his old save. I don't know. I need to double check with him on that, because I started on the tutorial scene. And this was like the original Hitman Codename 47, right? Like, this was, I think, really the first one that ever came out. And so you're going through the tutorial screen, or the tutorial stages, and you're jumping through hoops, and you're learning how to crouch, and you're learning how to walk around and jumping and all these things. And then you're going on your first mission. And the first mission was, I believe, somewhere in Chinatown, if I'm not mistaken. Like, it's just basically, this is the mission. You have to like find some sort of overlord, and you got to get rid of them. And all I could think of and all I could do was just run around the city, or like part of the level that you could be exploring. And I was like, wait a second, there is a person inside of the screen, and I can control everything that they do. Like, I'm telling them to jump, I'm telling them to crouch, I'm exploring all of these. Like, where even is this? Like, I'd never seen anything like it, right? And I don't remember which city of the United States it was set on. Maybe New York, I want to say. Um, but it blew my mind. And since then, I just knew that I wanted to explore more of these worlds, because it gave me access to the rest of the world, right? Like, gave me access to a world that I never saw, and honestly only heard about, like, from other people or saw on TV. But we, especially people from my country, at the time, my country wasn't even a country. It was more a region, right? A place on a map. We didn't have the rights to go out and explore, right? And see these places. So that's my first memory. And I really I love it so much. I know that Hitman is not, I would not recommend it to my nephews and nieces, of course, not before they turn of age. But um, I did see something bright in it too, right? Even from that naive perspective, I guess, or naive lens of being a kid.
Oh, that's really a sweet memory. I mean, I definitely think we can relate to being a little kid and sneaking and playing something we're not supposed to play.
Yeah.
After
Yeah.
you, had that experience with Hitman, were you like, were you able to play more games, or what was sort of like your trajectory from that first Hitman game to like getting into playing more?
Oh man. Now really down the memory lane. So it was still just jumping around between my two brothers' PCs. So my older brother, he was playing like the really serious games, like the Hitmans and the Splinter Cells and like those things. So they're very complex titles. And I honestly, I fell in love. Like for most of my childhood, I then sought out the same types of games. Like I sought out all the Hitmans that then came out or that I could play with the PC that my brother had. And at that point, they knew that they had nowhere to go. Like they couldn't run away. I was gonna find my way around into their computers, so they just sort of also let me install whatever I wanted to at that point. And they were
Oh,
like, "Oh, but just don't delete our saves." Um, and so I started getting more apt with that. And back in the day in Kosovo, you didn't have, there was no Steam. You didn't have these original CDs, right? So there were these stores where they sold pirated games that where they burnt onto these CDs, and that's how you got games. So you would go for very cheap, you would like get a pirated copy and you would go and install it in your computer. And you thought that you were buying the original game, right? Like, of course, as a kid, you had what is even piracy, but you would do that, right? And the next kind of games that I played were Grand Theft Auto 3, my first open world game, blew my mind with this moment where you're finished like with the first stage of the world and then or like the first map, right? The first neighborhood. And then you think that that's it. Like you think you finished the game, you finish all of the missions. And I was always the type of person, I still am that person that I'm doing all of the side quests and then kind of do the main quest last. And I did it. I did the whole thing. There was nothing else, no more houses to buy. And it was over, right? And then I'm just driving around, kind of like basking in the glory of, wow, I did it. And I'm listening to the radio station, and the radio station announces, like the announcer on the radio, and that says, hey, now the bridge has been fixed, and you could finally go to neighborhood number 2, whatever the name was. And I was like, wait a second. What do you mean I can go to neighborhood 2? And I still, to this, I will never forget that feeling of crossing over that bridge that was broken throughout my whole game. And now I could see like these really fancy cars, and now you had these skyscrapers, right? Because now the city was bigger. It blew my mind. I was like, this game is the best thing that's ever happened to me. It was incredible. So yeah, that was it. Half-Life then came into my life through like internet cafes. All my friends would go play Counter-Strike at the time, which was the mod of Half-Life. Right back then, it wasn't even a real game. Um, and then I went to play with them, but I didn't like Counter-Strike, so I found Half-Life hidden in the files of Counter-Strike because they had the executable, and I played it, and I was like, "Whoa, what is this? I've never heard of this. Why is nobody like talking about this game?" And that's how I also fell in love with the Half-Life franchise, and I played, of course, like throughout the whole thing. I just tried to find better PCs every time, like to play it, because at that point, episode 2, you needed a good graphics card, and I think I only had like Intel on my dad's computer. So it's like, a lot of bargaining. I think I had to do a lot of bargaining. I had to be smart with the titles that I found and the games that I found. What else? Sims was also one of them. That was my so The Sims, which is not now the game that I'm actually working on. The Sims is interesting because I would go and get those CDs. I had like this folder with all of the Sims 2 and all the expansion packs and stuff packs and everything. And I had it on like this folder, and I would go and install it at every single one of my cousins' places. Like I became almost like I don't know, their Sims dealer. I would just go and like, install it, and I would play with them and be like, yeah, this is how you play it. I love this. Do you want this expansion pack? Or this expansion pack is really cool. Yeah, it was really, when I think back on my childhood, and I love that you asked this question. I think back on my childhood, a lot of it was defined like by this, how can I play more, and where can I play more, right? Where's this space that I can actually engage in that kind of play? And it was always other computers until I finally got my own.
I mean, it sounds like you bought your games from this piracy store, then you became the pirates.
Sort of. Yeah. And hey, look, I gotta say, the moment, and then truly this was sort of a mission of mine. The moment that I got my own credit card and I was like old enough to have my own money, I did get a Steam account. I did give all that money back. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like
but
to
of
the right
course, but of
places, to the
course.
developers. You have to that's the thing. I'm talking about this, and obviously piracy is still a thing in today's world, but when I talk about it from the context of my country, it's like we didn't have anything else, right? It was simply not available to us. And then when it became available to us, I would hold myself and I would hold other people accountable in like, why are you not giving developers that have worked on this game, uh, right, the money that they worked really hard for, right? In that sense. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
supporting artists.
obviously supporting artists. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to kind of go back to something that you mentioned. I know this because I know you very well, but for people listening and learning about your journey, you mentioned that like when you played Hitman, it was in English and it was like something that you hadn't really experienced before. What was that like, and like how were you engaging with these games in another language? Like were they localized at all, or what was that experience like?
Oh, good. Wow, good question. Great question, honestly. So honestly, my experience, my relationship with English is pretty strange. I think also because of games, because of games and cartoons. So growing up, especially like so for a little bit of context for those who don't know Kosovo, in '99 there was a war, and then so basically everything after that like was recovering from that war. From that conflict, like pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, we had our own version of pre-war, post-war in the '99, and then early 2000s. And so a lot of my childhood was watching American Cartoon Network, like Cartoon Network, Boomerang, like all these things, and watching shows in English, which was a language that I was obviously unfamiliar with because my native language is Albanian. But sort of associating an image with a word, right? And then that image or that action was constantly sort of followed by an expression or by something that they were doing, right? It built I think it just built a natural way for me to adopt language, to adopt a new language like English. And I think games even more so because they have to be very descriptive. Like jump is jump, right? You literally see somebody jumping or crouching, right? In that example. And yeah, while maybe I probably didn't grasp much of the story, right, of what really was going on or like the context that it was happening underneath. I could pick up by that the incredible acting, right? Nor the incredible voices that you see voice acting plus like the 3D modeling, and the more games developed, the more obvious it was. Like you could read the faces, you could connect the dots yourself. I think a lot of that was like just the brain doing what the brain does, building this natural comprehension of what's going on and what am I seeing and what are these people feeling and how am I supposed to feel against that. Games like Half-Life really helped, for example, because they didn't put a word in your perspective, like as a protagonist, but you could just absorb the world around you and you built your own kind of understanding of what was going on. And it didn't colorize your perception, right, with your own words or your own sentences. So I think just over time, I just started to understand more. It was quite natural that way. Um, and I'm actually very grateful. I think even now, whenever I speak English and people think that, oh, your English is so good, your English feels so natural, I have games to thank, right? It's a huge part of that. It was such an influencing media for me growing up, and allowed a lot of that then form kind of my later expression. Even now, how I show up in the world, I think, is shaped by the kinds of games that I play and the kinds of characters that I got to see. Like Alex from Half-Life shaped so much of my perception. I just looked up to her so much. So, characters like these, right, that you form that kind of bond with, I think, just made it so natural for me to pick up this language.
I, when I first met you, I was like, "That's amazing that you taught yourself to speak a whole other language from media." Definitely not something that I don't think I could do. But I mean, I also wanted to talk a little bit more about as you're getting more immersed in games, in the medium, um, at what point were you like, "Oh, I wanna make these," or like, "Where do these come from?"
Hmm. Oh man, you're hitting me with the great questions.
The deep stuff.
Uh, yeah, they're really these are really the good stuff, and it just brings me so much joy, like going back to those moments, because you don't think about them all the time. So, um, and I also want to like flip the table on you, and then start asking you those things. But I understand this is we'll catch up. Um, but so yeah, I mean, for me, it was this so Half-Life 2 had a developer commentary. And I don't know, I'm not very well versed on this actually. I didn't do my research, but I would be curious to know how many other games had that at the time. But for me, it was the only game that I saw that I had something like that. So I finished, you would finish Half-Life, I finished it, and then, you go back to the starting screen, right? And now there was this new option on the menu which said developer commentary mode. And I was like, okay, what's that? And I think I was maybe 12, 13, I want to say, 13 years old when I played that. Um, and I saw it. So just started playing and the game starts over. But now, instead of you just playing the game, you see these little bubbles floating on the air. And if you approach them and you press E or you click on them or something, then the the developers, start talking about that scene, that moment, that whatever sound, whatever it is that's playing that is significant in the storyline of Half-Life 2. They're telling us how they came to those decisions. So, for example, no spoilers, but you enter Ravenholm, right? And there was this person that was talking all about like why they exactly put the light like over there in the distance. What's up with the noises that are happening in the background? These were level designers, are like basically also animators, because they were saying, oh yeah, like we really needed this particular creature to move this way because we wanted to elicit this sort of feeling on the person. And same with like lighting, and it that was another moment when I think this was the moment really when I realized somebody is making this experience. Like there is somebody that thinks about how I'm going to feel and what I'm going to experience as I'm walking through this level. And these people are all kinds of people, right? Like I don't know what these words even mean, game designer, programmer, lighting artist, whatever. It's like what even is this? There is a whole world out there that is thinking about these things. And I want to know more about this, and I want to be one of those people. At the time, I didn't really know what it was. It was like, who are these people? And I want to be that, right? I want to help make these worlds. It's crazy. Yeah. It was beautiful.
I mean, developer commentary is really interesting. I feel like I can't think of many games that have done that. I think it's, like,
Right?
super cool. It reminds me of the, like, extras on DVDs for film commentary, so, it'd be cool to see more games do that.
Yeah, that would be awesome, honestly. Because I mean, for sure, developers maybe nowadays are maybe more reluctant to say that, yeah, I've worked on this part of the game, or yeah, I've done that, just because of it's a very vulnerable place to be, especially nowadays that there's so much exposure on media. Anybody, there's so much information out there, and many people have access to information, and not everybody has the best intentions. And unfortunately, over time, I think developers, as a way of protecting themselves, also like dissociate or disconnect sort of from the end product, and they say, well, I did my best, hope you like it, but if you don't, please don't come find
Don't
me.
come to my house. Yeah.
Don't go to that, which is so sad, right? Like, I mean, it is sad. It's the world that we live in, for sure. And you have to. Everybody has to take care of themselves, and this is why it's so important that we take care of each other. But I guess that would be my guess as to why maybe it's not very common these days, or that it's like through very controlled channels that you see developers talking about the people that have made the game.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're probably spot on. Um, After you sort of started to learn about the Wizards of Oz, how did you how did you start your journey to become one? And like, what was that process like? And tell us about your journey.
Uh, Well, so I didn't know, again, what it was that I wanted to be, but my brother was already a programmer, so I kind of had that as like a familiarity zone. And I thought to myself, well, it programming is about computers, and so if I get closer to being in computers and my job or my future looks more like closer to being with computers or working with them, maybe that means I'll be closer to video games because again, like Kosovo had no such thing. It just didn't exist as like a game development scene at all. And of course, there was no such thing as access to that kind of education. So things were still kind of trickling in very slow. The rest of the world was like, we're always, let's say, 10 years ahead of us at that point. Um, so I didn't even really know what sort of programs were out there. And so I enrolled in computer science and I just thought, okay, I'll just learn everything there is to learn about computers and see what comes out of it. And at that age, you don't have a lot of foresight. You can kind of maybe see a few years ahead and you have this goal dangling somewhere over your head and you're like, yeah, kind of this vision, right? But you don't really know the steps that take you there. So I think that was like my best projection as to what would get me closer. And I wasn't wrong because I did end up in the third year of my studies in computer science. One of my professors reached out to me and he just comes to me and he says, well, Agnes, you're going to go to Norway for a semester. You're going to study game development. And I was like, what? Really? I had not applied. I had not, like, no joke. I had done nothing. I was just like showing up to classes. He's like, yeah, well, you kept like rambling on about video games this and video games that. So I heard about this project, program. So I put your name in because I thought you wanted to do this. And I was like, well, but I've never even been out of my country, like much less like to do something like this, right? And then yeah, they actually made it possible. Like there was this program, like exchange student program, and I went to Norway for a semester, and I did there get to really see. I met people, Simon McCallum, one of my professors, incredible person, incredible game developer. I think he was a game designer and he was really kind of a genius in his own right. And I think he was one of the first people that I was exposed to that I realized, okay, like this is kind of who I want to be when I grow up. I want to have this level of knowledge and I want to teach people how to design games. And this was the other thing, that there was game programming, and then there were the game design class. And I said to myself, game programming, no, this is not it. This is not for me. But what is for me, this game design thing. What is this? Like, this is those people that are designing the experience and they're thinking about literally everything that goes on in the game. And butterfly flies by and you're like, oh wait, that's a clue. This is a designer behind that decision. And I wanted to, then this is where I took the sort of the side step, right, of, okay, I think this programming experience is like turned out to actually be really helpful for me in the future. But I leaned into the design side of it more. And that then, from here on out, I went back to Kosovo after it ended. Started working as a software developer again because there was nothing kind of available. And I heard about this other scholarship that was making it possible for people to go to the US and study. And I just knew in the US there had to be something. So I went and I applied for a scholarship in this program, and I put like, there was these bunch of categories, and there was a category other, and I just did other, and I just did game design. I don't know what the thing is called. I just want to do game design. And they called me and they asked me, okay, but like, tell us a little bit about this. And I was like, well, I also don't know. So I'm, that's, that's why I want to go to the US and I want to study. So I was lucky enough that they said yes to that. And that's where we met. I ended up going to Florida Interactive Entertainment Academy, and I became a professional in the gaming industry. That's the journey.
I love the honesty. I don't know, but I'm gonna find out.
It was a genuine answer. It was like, I have all these dreams, but I really don't know much about this field. So just take me there. Let me learn.
That's amazing. Honestly, I remember like there are actually some parts of this story that I'm learning for the first time, and I've known you for a long time. So that's really cool to learn about your journey and how you've gotten to where you are now. Um, I think as you've been reflecting on all this, what does
Hmm.
it feel like to see how far you've come from where you started? And do you think that there's a moment that, as you're reflecting on this, where you're like, I think that's when I figured out, or that's when it happened for me, that I felt like I'm living this dream that I wanted to have.
Whoa. Oh, man. What was it? What was that moment? This is like one of those questions because like once you make it into the industry, you realize that it is one of the hardest industry of the modern. Okay, I say this, maybe let's say creative industries. I will specify because there are hard industries out there that pay a lot less and they offer a lot less privileges to people. So I think game development as a whole was its own crucible. And
Yeah.
it is not, we know what's happening with the industry now. It's no secret. It is definitely, there's definitely something that needs to be done, right? Like we need to talk a lot more about it and talk a lot more about the mental health in the industry and like how things are going. So we say that, and now I'm so mindful of this also just because of all the young people that have reached out to me through LinkedIn, like through this mentorship program, from Amir Sadvat community that sort of came to life after all the layoffs that are happening. And so I kind of opened my doors, and like all these young people coming to me saying, hey, how do I make it in this industry? It's my dream job. It's like I really want to do this. I really want to work, and I can't find roles in it, and I can't kind of make my way into it. And that's why it's so hard to answer this question, because I think my one wow, I made it moment was after all of this hardship, after all, like everybody around me telling me this is impossible, you're never going to do it, you're never going to get it. How are you nuts? Like, who, first of all, you're a woman, and second of all, like everything else, it's like, how are you going to get there from Kosovo? How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? And where are you going to be working? Are you going to leave home? And all these questions are so important and so um, there's a lot of sacrifice behind those, right? Decisions that you make to be in this industry and to get to tell the stories you want to tell. And I think one moment that comes to me when I think about like, okay, hey, I made it, was, and there's maybe 2, 3 now, like as I'm trying to like pull it from memory. But I'll tell you the first one. So the first one was when I pitched. There's a title in the back, right behind you there. It's Child No More. This was this was our capstone project. Um, and when I pitched this game to everybody in the cohort, it was the first time ever that I had shared my story of where I come from. And I felt like this was a story that was simply not told, especially not from the perspective of people that had been through this. Like, I was a kid when the war in Kosovo happened, and now, 20 years later, almost 20 years later, I got to tell the story through a medium that I was so fascinated by when I was a kid. And I could explore all the emotional implications. I could fuel this title, this experience, with so much meaning that came from this one perspective I had to offer, which was my lived experience. And all these people in the room, how many were there? Like 70 of us or something. Wanted to contribute, said, yeah, you know what, this is awesome. I want to give my brains, I want to pour my brains into this. Let's bring it to life. um, those That moment for me was both significant because it felt like I finally, like, there was something in my chest, that just saying, there's these stories I want to tell. And this was a moment when I could tell it. And then the other side of it was that it was finally seen in the world, and people wanted to bring it to life, to help bring it to life. And I thought, okay, this is really what game development is all about. It's like people coming together from completely different spheres, different worlds, universes, perspectives, experiences. And we want to make something together. And we want to, like, the more of us will do this, right, the more experiences are, the better the experience is going to be. and it's coming from, especially if it's coming from a place of honesty and sincerity, that game is gonna, right, it's gonna really touch hearts and is gonna do the thing that we all wanted it to do, right? So that was really that one moment when you see this and you hope, man, I really hope that this is the way that it is forever. But we know nowadays, right? It is an industry, it is entertainment, and there's always like a number that you're going for something, right? There is maybe people are maybe not as inclined in just telling the stories that they want to tell because of the state of the industry and the state of economy and all that. We don't have to get into it, but I'm always hoping, like, when new generations are coming in and they saying, how do I do this? How do I make it in there? I'm always mindful to say both, right? Like, yes, you can be in this industry, and yes, it like, I understand the passion and the fire, right? Make sure that you have a stable ground beneath your feet from where you can tell these stories, and don't lose this dream of telling the stories you want to tell, right? Don't settle. Try not to, like, just douse that fire because you think it's never going to happen. It's impossible. Like, keep that fire with you, but find your stability in whichever shape or form that you need to, right? Work on whatever you need to work on. And don't stop believing in that, because, I think we can still tell the stories we want to tell. And I think where the world needs to hear and the world needs to experience. I don't know. Did I answer the question? That was a bit of a roundabout way about it. Sorry.
I don't think you were wrong, but you did answer the question, and thank you for sharing that, because I think we were on this project together, and I remember when you pitched it to the class, and it was is we were kids back then. It was a long time ago, and I think
Yeah.
we all had our own goals. We all came from such different parts of the world, and honestly, I think when you're a kid and you're just trying to make it, and for games, at least at that time, for a lot of us, like, we were kind of out on our own, and our families were like, "What are you doing?" And so the stakes are
Yeah.
too high for kids, and there's a lot of pressure. But I'm really proud of what we made, and I think, hearing about your perspective and what it was like for you, I think is really meaningful. And you were always so honest and vulnerable and open, and I think that really showed in the art that we made. And our team really came together in a way where we all, like, rallied behind your vision, and we made something that was really meaningful. So I think that's special. And I also think it's really
Yeah.
insightful and important to tell that truth to young developers now, where it's like you can still live your dreams and make things happen, but you are a citizen of the world, and the current state of the world means that you have to have some kind of foundation and some kind of financial stability to
Yeah.
continue as an artist. Um,
Yes.
and those are important things to have both of those perspectives. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I wish that, there was a manual to how to do that right. you know, I,
Yeah.
I wish the manual didn't have to change every 2 to 3 years, but so long as we have, I think, people out there sharing their stories and doing what you're doing, right? Like bringing people in and then just talking about, their path. And, wow, we really do come from all sorts of places and all kinds of backgrounds. And somehow making games and telling stories, just through this medium, brings us all together. um if we can share more of those stories, and then we can kind of find ways that, yeah, I want to do that too, or we can inspire each other to just keep at it and believe that not only can we do it, but that we really do deserve to be treated right and to be allowed the space to tell the stories and to give the agency, to creative agency, let's say, to bring those stories to life, to the best of our abilities in whatever way, shape or form that ends up being. Then, like, let more of us do this. Let more of us do it. um, yeah,
I'm hopeful for the future, and I think there are a lot of people out there who share that sentiment with us. And I'm excited to see how we can make things better for the people who come after us.
yeah, yeah. Me too. Me too.
We're almost out of time. I had one last question for you. For folks
Right.
who want to hear more from you, or follow your journey, where can people find you online?
Oh, well, LinkedIn is probably the best place to start, especially if you're in game development. That's kind of like my game development space, where I show up as Agnesa Belegu, the game designer. I also have Instagram. On Instagram, I am mostly posting things like my poetry, or like my words and thinking, and maybe sometimes even singing. So it's a different spectrum of myself. If you're keen on that too, you can search for me on Instagram as Bubamar. That's Bubamare. And yeah, if that's kind of your thing, you can follow me there. But for sure, LinkedIn, especially if you're looking, something that I'm doing is I'm offering people also this 1 to 2 sessions of just like talking to me, and then they can send me their CVs for reviews or their portfolios, and they can get kind of I just share my insights on what I see and basically the value that they bring into the companies and how they're presenting themselves, basically, and try to help them improve that, or in any shape or form unlock the doors where you tend to hide behind. We're like, yeah, I don't know, did I really do that? I love to help people unlock that, right? To just be that gentle nudge of like, you got it, just go ahead. So if you feel like you need that, my time is yours. So just shoot me a message, we can find something.
Oh, y'all, if you're an aspiring developer or a junior developer, definitely reach out. It's important to have those opportunities to speak with someone who can help you take things to the next level. Thank you so much for being on this show today. I had so much fun talking to you.
Thank you. Thanks for the wonderful questions and going down memory lane with you. Yeah, I honestly feel true joy, just like going back in the past, and it's been a real pleasure. Thanks again for the invite.
You are so welcome. And thank you all for listening and watching. I've been your host, Carmen Askerneese. You can find me on Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok at Carmen Askerneese. You can find me on Substack at The Save Point. If you're watching on a video platform, be sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. If you're listening on a podcast platform, leave a review. It really helps the show grow. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I hope to see you in the next one.
Bye.